republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for joining us today. Any person present who wishes to address the board or raise any questions about public school district matters or governing policies may do so under public participation. No discussion of personnel or individual students is permitted at this time. A limit of 3 minutes is placed on each speaker. Persons who want more time may make arrangements to be placed on a future agenda. The public is also reminded that they may provide input on all motions being considered by the board at this meeting. Additionally, anyone wishing to make public comments virtually may submit the following form. So we'll go ahead and get started. I actually wanted to move public comment around. I know Jen Hall does have a public comment that she'd like to speak at the beginning, so are you ready for that, Ms. Hall?
Good afternoon. I'm a veteran educator with 26 years experience at Lockwood, and I'm here today to formally express many of our staff's collective concerns regarding the upcoming appointment of an interim superintendent. Like many others, I'm deeply concerned with the direction our district has taken over the past several months. Within a very short period of time, we've seen the resignation of our superintendent, our business manager, our district clerk, and now a trustee. These are not isolated events. Whether people agree on the reasons or not, this level of turnover should give every one of us pause. Our current assistant superintendent has dedicated years of service to this district. He worked alongside our superintendent, understood our schools, knew our staff, and was the logical internal candidate to be considered. Instead, the process surrounding his candidacy appeared inconsistent and incomplete. At least one trustee has publicly stated that they were not included in discussions regarding negotiations with him. Negotiations were ended during a public meeting after he requested that interview questions be moved into a closed session, and despite never publicly withdrawing his interest in the position, he was not invited to interview alongside the other finalists. Whether or not he would have ultimately been selected is not my point. My concern is that a respected administrator who has invested years in this district deserved a fair, transparent, and complete process. Our community deserved one as well. During the last board election, our community heard repeated promises of transparency, open communication, and making sure people felt heard. Those were promises many people believed in. Yet what many staff members and community members have experienced instead is the opposite. Public comments are no longer being read, questions have been cut short or left unanswered, trustees themselves have stated on the record they were excluded from important discussions. Community members and staff have left meetings feeling frustrated rather than informed. Transparency isn't posting an agenda. It's creating an environment where questions are welcomed, information is shared openly, and people feel like their voices matter. As you interview candidates for interim superintendent, I ask you to remember that interim does not mean unimportant. This person will lead our district through approximately 180 instructional days. They will influence our teachers, our students, our families, and the culture of our district each and every day. Given that one of the finalists has recently been the subject of significant public controversy, another has a documented history of not remaining in superintendent positions, and the third has existing ties within our community that has raised questions from some community members, I would have expected an even more transparent hiring process. When candidates have complex backgrounds, the community deserves confidence that thorough vetting has occurred and that trustees have had the opportunity to openly discuss those concerns before making a decision. At the same time, we're entering the school year without a business manager, with uncertainty surrounding critical district operations and delays that affected the purchasing of curriculum and classroom materials. These decisions have real consequences that extend far beyond this boardroom. My hope is simple. Please rebuild the trust that has been lost. Honor the transparency that was promised. Welcome questions instead of limiting them. Respect differing opinions instead of silencing them. Ensure every candidate receives a fair process and every trustee has a voice in important decisions. Most importantly, remember that every decision made at this table affects the people who are preparing classrooms, sending their children to school, and trusting you to act in the best interests of this district. We're not asking for perfection. We're asking for transparency, fairness, and leadership worthy of the community you were elected to serve. Thank you.
Thank you. So at this time, I just would request, as long as you guys are, all the trustees are okay with it, I'd like to move public comment till the end of all of the other interviews. And then one more item of business is just, I did have an additional request by a trustee to add an additional question to the interview questions. Does the board see any concerns with adding a question? And the question, that is being proposed is, do you believe a district of the size can be effectively led without an assistant superintendent? Why or why not, and what factors would influence your assessment?
Will that just be added at the end?
Correct.
Okay.
Is everybody good with adding that question on?
Yep.
Okay, we will add it.
I guess I disagree. I
Okay,
don't think somebody interviewing for a position has the knowledge of what is needed in this district as an interviewee.
okay. Everybody else good? Okay.
Sorry.
Thank you for the, we'll go ahead and add it. If you guys wanna add it to the packet that you have on the interview questions, we'll make sure that it gets added for all of the candidates.
I guess a subpart of that question could be, what experience do they have that would lend them to have that opinion? Do they have experience with a district of a similar size, right? Why would they have that opinion? And does the experience match?
Okay. I'm just gonna add that to my document. Okay. Thank you, guys. So good afternoon. Before we begin the candidate interviews, I'd like to review public interview process and provide some information for both the board and the public. The board's objective tonight, or this afternoon, is to conduct a fair, consistent, and transparent evaluation of each candidate. All candidates will be asked the same interview questions and evaluated using the same criteria and rubric. Trustees are expected to consider each candidate based on their qualifications, experience, interview responses, references, and the needs of the district. I would also ask all trustees to approach today's interviews with an open mind and give each candidate a full and fair opportunity to present their qualifications before any decision is made. I also want to address transparency regarding relationships with candidates. In a community our size, trustees and candidates may have prior professional business, community, or personal relationships. Having a relationship with a candidate does not automatically prevent participation in the process. However, transparency is important to maintain public confidence in the board's decision-making. Accordingly, I would ask each trustee to consider whether they have any personal, professional, business, family, or other relationship, or any other circumstance, positive or negative, that could affect or reasonably be perceived as affecting their ability to evaluate any candidate fairly and objectively. If any trustee wishes to make a disclosure, please do so at this time.
I would like to make a disclosure for the record. One of today's candidates, Lance Olson, and his family are members of our community. Over the years, our kids have played soccer together, and I have come to know Lance and his wife through acquaintances with that shared community involvement. Last year, Jing Olson contacted me in the capacity as a real estate agent to help assess the value of their home. That engagement led to a standard listing contract. It was a routine arm's length transaction for which I was compensated normally. At that time, I was not aware of Lance's professional background, and neither of us had reason to anticipate the current situation we find ourselves in today. I've disclosed this to legal counsel, and I've been advised that under Board Policy 1512, that this does not apply to past, that none of the prohibitions under Policy 1512 apply to this past completed transaction, and that I may proceed as a member of the community provided I make this disclosure and affirm my ability to decide fairly. I make that affirmation now. My oath as a trustee to act in the best interest of Lockwood students takes precedence over any prior relationship, and I'm fully capable of evaluating all three candidates objectively, so as I intend to do so.
Thank you. Any other disclosures of?
I am friends with one of the candidates, Lance Olson, and encourage him to apply for the position, as I have done many times in the past as a hiring manager for several different companies in the area. It is completely normal for a hiring manager to reach out to his sphere of influence and encourage them to apply for open positions. As a board member, I have a duty of loyalty to the district, and having a friend apply for a position of which I'm a part of the hiring team is no more of a conflict of interest of having my children in the school that I'm sitting on the board.
Thank you. And do you feel that you can objectively review all three candidates?
Yes, absolutely.
Any other disclosures that would like to be documented?
I don't have disclosure, but I have questions.
Yep, we do have Niles. Do you have questions in regards to this or in regards to?
In regards to legal surrounding this, are you Niles?
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Stacy.
Hi, nice to meet you.
On June 24th, is Larry your father?
My boss.
Okay. Your supervisor?
Yes.
Okay. On the phone had said that there is, he said if it is a family member, close friend, or you've received any monetary benefit, it would eliminate you from that vote, and that it would be a conflict of interest, so I feel like we're getting maybe contradicting advice.
I'm not sure what Larry would have been talking about in that specific instance. As it relates to Montana law, there's sort of clear, bright line rules where you are in a situation of a conflict of interest that would eliminate your ability to vote. And that arises in situations of nepotism. So if somebody is of a certain relation to you, either blood or through marriage, that's one way where a kind of bright line rule of conflict of interest could arise. And the other one is essentially a board member can't have a certain percentage within a company that is to do business with the school district. That's another way that it could be a conflict of interest. Based on the explanations I just heard, neither of those apply. Apart from those sort of bright line rules, there's another sort of general idea that if you're, so close to that individual that you can't put aside biases, then that might be a situation where it'd be beneficial to abstain from voting. But I believe, as the two trustees explained, they believe that they don't have such a bias that they couldn't be objective in reviewing the candidates. So I don't see a conflict of interest as explained here.
Okay, I just felt like that was kind of contradicting.
Thank
And do
you.
we need to worry about the other candidates potentially having lawsuits against the district, knowing that there are these personal relationships? And not to put you on the spot, Dave, but if you encourage somebody to apply, could the other candidates bring suits against the district for, this being an unfair process potentially?
I'm always hesitant to say, could they? I walk down the street, somebody could probably sue me in today's day and
Could they
age.
successfully?
I would say it's very limited to say that they could argue any sort of law that would apply, right? Typically, when you're talking about employment lawsuits, you're talking about some sort of discrimination, simply because you know somebody. That's not a form of discrimination in Montana. So no, I don't think there would really be a cause of action there, just because you might know somebody.
So the candidates' application materials, resumes, and other related to this interview process may be available. We do have some copies up here if you guys want to look at them. Again, they're available through the district in accordance with Montana Public Records requirements. Any applicable privacy protections or required redactions. In addition, the interview questions, evaluation rubric, agenda materials, and other public documents will need to be made available online. We had planned on having copies and our printer did not work, so we can get those for you also. To maintain a complete and accurate record of the process, trustees will be asked to submit all completed evaluation forms, your scoring rubrics, and interview notes at the conclusion of the interview process. These materials will be retained as part of the district's interview records. The board recognizes that members of the community may hold differing views regarding the candidates or the ultimate decision. Tonight's focus is on conducting a fair process, applying consistent standards, and selecting the individual the board believes is best positioned to serve the district and its students. Before we move into the interview process, Jan Hewitt, would you please join us at that table? I would like to just go around the table and do introductions of the board, and then Niles kind of already got introduced, but Niles Greer, he is our legal counsel with Felt Martin. So, Robbie, you want to start?
I'm Robbie Hanson. position of student body representative on student council. So I'm here as a non-voting member in the advisory board.
Shane McKee, been a trustee for 2 years.
Stacy Leeson, also a trustee for 2 years.
David Robinson, new trustee this year.
Lacey Rollins, I've been on the board about 5 years, and this year I am the chair of the school board.
Jackie Lorang, I've been on the board for 2 years and I am co-chair.
Charity Board, and I'm the new trustee. And this is Michelle Tate. Michelle, you wanna introduce yourself?
I'm Michelle Tate, I'm the interim business clerk.
Good evening and welcome. Thank you for your interest in serving Lockwood School District as an interim superintendent. The purpose of today's interview is to allow the board to learn more about your qualifications, leadership experience, and approach to guiding the district through the period of transition. To ensure a fair and consistent process, each candidate will be asked the same interview questions. Board members may ask limited follow-up questions and clarifications if needed. Trustees will be completing evaluation rubrics during the interview process to assist them in their consideration of all candidates. Following all interviews, the board will consider the candidates and may take action regarding the appointment of an interim superintendent. So thank you again for joining us this afternoon, and we will go ahead and begin with our first question. Do you want to go ahead and start? Pardon me?
Thank you for the invitation.
Yes.
First question is related to budget. Can you tell us your experience creating a district budget and utilizing various funding sources?
Unfortunately, in my experiences, I have not had the opportunity to physically create budgets. What I have done is work with others in looking at specifically the budget. In Malta, I did submit a budget proposal for the elementary, looking at what our needs were, and being able to line item things that were consistently being purchased over the years, subscriptions and such. However, I also believe that even though I haven't had real world experience with that, I have dealt with budgets. I do understand the ramifications of each of the budget line items and how they can work together, where things can go, and how you can utilize the funds, what can't be utilized for certain things, what can be utilized for certain things. And I will also say that I'm never afraid of asking questions or searching out answers. So if something comes up and we're unsure of what the specific budget item needs to be, I will get out there and reach out to the sources that will be able to provide us those answers.
Next question, when budgets are tight, there are no easy choices in making budget reductions. How would you approach making difficult choices such as staff reductions, facility closures, and elimination of education programs?
Most important in any budget cycle is making sure that the students get what they need. In order to do that, that will require some hard choices at times. What is the best decision? I'm going to pull from all of our stakeholders and look at what are the things that we need to do, how can we make minor cuts to be able to allow us to get where we need to go. Are there other funding sources of which we can tap to be able to cover those items? Is it going to be a temporary item? Can we be able to look at moving something from one location to another and then moving forward with how to reallocate those funds where they belong in the first place? If it comes down to we have to cut a program or we have to majorly curtail how it's going to be run, then that is a decision that I will own and say, we have looked at everything that we can. This is the decision we have to make. We have to move forward based on what we have.
You want me to do policies? Sure. Okay. The next section is policies and planning. What level of participation do you feel is appropriate for board members in the affairs of the district?
I
I think we need to be a team. I think that your job is to make sure that the school's mission and focus is successful. The role of the superintendent is to make sure that you have all the information you need, to make sure that you know all that's out there. What is it that we need to do? What policy do we have to put in place? If we need to change a policy, why do we need to change it? How is it going to benefit or hinder our students or staff? If we have something in place that's not working or puts us at risk, then we need to make sure that that is taken care of. But the school board is ultimately my boss. And your jobs are to make sure that my role as a superintendent is being successful because we have moved through all the issues that the district is seeing.
What would you do to recruit good teachers and good administrators when vacancies occur?
Well, I think that one of the things that we always need to do in any district we work in is highlight the positives in our community. One of the things that I was tasked to do in Malta, and I've also had to do it with my previous position at Lynn School Global, in multiple states, try to find candidates for positions, is being able to, first of all, make sure that our advertising is being effective. Are we putting it in the right locations? Second, are we making sure that those who are looking at us are seeing the positives to be here? I will tell you, within just a few minutes of being here, I am super impressed with what I see. I can see some things that are going to need some support, but looking at this canvas, I am very impressed with what I see. I see an organization that very much cares about what they see, what they're doing with their students. And if we can make sure that our candidates, that when we're replacing open positions, that they want to be here, then that's absolutely awesome. We also need to look at the other side of that, and that's the retention. Why are people choosing to leave? What is going on that is making those choices to happen? Do we have an issue that we need to deal with? Or is it just that this person has decided that it's time for them to move on to another location and another step in their career journey? If there's something going on, we need to address it now so that we don't continue to lose whatever is happening. And quite honestly, if we're doing the job that we need to do in recruiting really great teachers, really great staff members, we then need to give them the power to do what they need to do in their classrooms and their jobs so that their expertise is utilized. The only way that we can do that is to bring in the good people. And in order to do that, we have to make sure that we stand above all of the rest of the openings.
Communications. Describe the kind of relationships you want to have with the board members of this district.
I want to mimic the relationships that I had with the last school board that I worked with. The Malta School Board was very transparent. I was able to have really great conversations. Good, bad, if something was happening, we could talk about it and deal with it. Transparency on all of our sides will allow us to make sure that we, as an entity, continue to drive the school in a positive direction. So I really truly believe that we're going to have a lot of personal conversations, understanding where you're coming from, your concerns about the district. What is it that I can do as the leader of this district to take us in the direction that we're needing to take it through? No worries. Sorry, that stumbled me for a second. But ultimately, I think that we need to have a very cohesive relationship. I'm a very transparent guy. you'll see from the packet of information I provided to you, I address things upfront. If an issue comes up, if I'm making a misstep, I want to know so that I can correct that immediately. If we have an issue happening within one of the buildings, I need to know that. I need to have good relationships with the administrators I'm gonna be working with. It has to be a two-way street. It has to be collaborative. It has to be in a way that, again, we provide an environment that our students will see success. If we've got angst and conflict going on that is getting in that way, then that's not gonna be positive for everyone.
Explain your plan to foster and develop a positive working atmosphere.
All right, well, I'm going to take that public comment and run with it. That tells me that there is something here that needs to be addressed. And the first thing that I need to find out is what's going on and why. My wholehearted belief is when we have an issue, we need to bring it out front into the light and give it a voice. If it's fixable, we're gonna fix it. If it's not something that's fixable, then there's gonna be an explanation as to why we can't fix that said issue. But if we push it down, it doesn't work. I just left a district where that happened, and it's hard. It's absolutely hard. And I will tell you right now, what I know about Malta right now would have made my approach to it totally different when I started. And we may not be having this conversation right now. But it's also given me a huge leg up into walking into a different situation where I can now see those things happening. And the instincts that I feel when I'm having those conversations are now something I know how to react to. I didn't have that knowledge before. And so my hope is that if I am given that position, this position, that I can start the healing process that I can feel is here right now. I don't think it's not surmountable. I don't think it's not something that can't be fixed, but it's going to take bringing it out into the light. If it continues to stay in the dark in any way, shape, or form, it's going to fester, and it's just gonna be worse.
The next category is board relations. Give us some idea of how you judge your own effectiveness as a superintendent, and how would you expect the board to evaluate your work?
So, I think this will stem from part of the conversation we've already had. Our relationships will help us to understand how effective I'm being. The relationships that I'm working with the staff will help us to understand how effective I'm being. And like I said earlier, if I'm making missteps, if I am making misjudgments, I need to know immediately so that I can learn and make changes. I am a leader who looks at, if we have successes, everybody gets the credit for it. But if there's a failure, that's on my shoulders. If something has failed, it means that I didn't do the job that needed to be done to make sure that everybody was successful. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not perfect. I'm not even close. I don't have a complete knowledge of everything. That's why we have experts. And that's why we trust those experts to do their jobs. And if we don't have those experts here, then we need to work on making sure that we have them. Because there's no way for one person to be able to do everything. So I liken it to a music ensemble. I'm a band director, music teacher. I get to wave my arms. But in order for that music to come out, those 60 people in front of me have to do their jobs. If they can't do their jobs, if they don't know how to do their jobs, if they're unwilling to do their jobs, if they don't connect with the rest of the people in the organization, what the audience is going to hear is going to be garbage. Doesn't make any difference what I do here. If they're not doing their job, it doesn't make any difference. But my job is to start, stop, change. That's it. And I approach my leadership from the same direction. Start, stop, change.
A board member claims to represent a sizable group in your community, but he or she seems to be in opposition to most of your recommendations. What would you do?
Have a conversation. Again, if there's opposition, I need to know what's going on. And my experience tells me that the reason that opposition is there is either we have an agenda and which may not meet or may meet what the students need, or we have a confusion, a misunderstanding. And the only way that we can get there and get past it is to hear it. There's a reason why we have 2 ears and 1 mouth. I'm going to sit and I'm going to listen. I'm going to understand. I am going to work to be able to figure out and hear what's going on. And then together with that, we're gonna find a solution. And we're gonna bring everybody together and we're gonna work through that solution. Without that collaboration, we're gonna go down the wrong path. Stephen Covey has a really great philosophy. You can have a leader taking you in a direction. You're in a forest, you're cutting it down, making a path. But if that leader doesn't know where you're going, you could be completely off track from where you need to end up. So that's why I need to know what's going on. I need to be able to lead us in that direction. That's my job. I can't do that if I push away that opposition. It's just gonna get worse, and then we're gonna go in the wrong direction. And then it's gonna make it worse.
Thank you.
Personnel, in what areas do you feel your strengths are, and what do you believe your significant accomplishments, both as an educational leader and as a person?
So, earlier I spoke about the fact that I build relationships in my leadership. I think I'm very successful at that. I think by building those relationships, I can build trust with my staff, and then with that trust, I can push them. One of the things that I learned in my time with One School Global, OSG, the learning environment there was a self-directed learning environment, which meant that we needed to push our kids outside of their norms. We set a basement for them and allowed them to find their ceilings. In order for them to be successful, the people that were working with them also had to experience that. And in order to experience that, you have to be put into a situation where you don't know how to get yourself out of it. And you have to work through it. Okay? I can tell you right now, that the day that I walk into this job, I'm gonna be in that learning pit. I'm gonna be in a situation where I don't know everything, and I need to take all of my experience and walk us out. I'm gonna push the staff in that same direction. There is a need for all of us to know that. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm gonna just throw them to the wolves and no successes there. It's a process. It's a starting point, and it's finding where they're at right now and pushing them outside of that comfort zone. And that can happen with a brand new teacher. That can happen with a person who is been in 25, 30 years into this field. It requires trust, and it requires the abilities to be okay with failure. And the only way that can happen is because you've been there and you've successfully got out of it before. And the only way that you can be successful with that is that you're not afraid of it, that you actually work to get it done. So my hope is that my leadership will take us in a direction where we continue to grow.
Do you believe there is any difference in how you would lead the district as an interim superintendent versus as a long-term superintendent? If so, what would those differences be?
Well, that actually was one of the conversation points that I would have with the school board if I received this, is how do you want me to approach this district? If my role is to look at this only as a one-year position, then I believe that my job would be to be able to bring to light any issues and make recommendations on how to fix those. If I'm approaching this as a long-term position, I'm still doing that, but then I'm working on the rebuilding. My rebuilding, I apologize. I did have it on Do Not Disturb. I happen to be a person that feels particularly on that. If I'm approaching this position with your guidance to look at it as long-term, then I'm gonna start building on those items that I've identified. How do we fix them? How do we move forward? How do we build up the things that are working really, really well, which we know there are things that work really well in this district. If I'm just looking at the interim, then I will do what I can to help rebuild. But the reality is whatever I'm doing, if I'm not then put into the position on the other side, is going to be redone anyway. And it's not that I won't put the effort there, but it won't necessarily be the same push, because I don't want to put in place something that my successor won't be able to finish, and won't be able to take in that direction.
Sounds good, thank you. I don't think the third page printed with additional questions.
Should just be the extra.
There should be more, because we have quite a few more.
Yeah, so,
Check
oh,
boxes.
You're on the second page, number 6 through 11.
are we missing 6 through 11? Okay. Thank you, I didn't, felt like we were short.
Interview questions. So we did all the way through personal. I'll go ahead and start here. We've got additional questions if time
Go
allows.
to 6. Niles, no. Niles, no. Oh, that one, thank you. So,
Okay.
just, and then, you guys, we'll read the question, and then if you guys wanna just take notes, and then you should have it electronically too, but just put the notes on the back of the paper. Thanks.
What is your style in consulting/collaborating with people affected by decisions?
Bring them together. I think that I've provided a theme in how I deal with things, and that is communication, transparent communication. You cannot make a decision on anything if you don't have all the facts, if you don't have all the perspectives. If you walk into a situation with your idea in mind and you try it through. I'm gonna provide you an example, because it was an eye-opening example for me. One of the things that I was tasked with at OSG was to put together every year a virtual concert. Sometimes that was done live, and I could go into the chaos that was. But the last 2 years, post-COVID, those concerts were done via a video. The first year that I was asked to do that, I spent the time putting the video together. I brought all the raw materials together, and I spent between 40 and 60 hours editing that 10-minute video. The second year, I went, I don't have time for this with everything else. So I reached out for some help. I asked and sent it out. A group of students jumped on, juniors and seniors, jumped in and said, we'll take this. We came together for our first meeting to plan how we were going to do it. I walked into the meeting, virtually walked into the meetings. We're clear across the United States and North America. Walked into the meeting with the thought process, and I laid it out for those students. Their response to me was, that sounds great, Mr. Hewitt, but here's how we're going to do it. And their conclusion was so far better than I had even thought of, because their experience had already taken them through everything that I'd already done. They had better experiences than I did. If I had driven it through with my ideas, the success would not have been there. But because I stepped back and listened and went, oh, yes, it was successful. And it was absolutely marvelous to see that outcome. And I'm sure that they did it, completed that project in far less than 40 hours that I put in on it because of their knowledge and expertise. That taught me so much about how to deal with problems. Yes, I will come into the meeting, come into the situation with an idea, but we're going to talk about it. And it's that collaboration that's going to allow us to have a very, very great solution on the other side. And by allowing everybody to have that voice, that solution will work. And if it fails, again, it comes back.
Just so when you guys are evaluating, that should have been question number 6, which would be included in communications. Yep, now we're on to education. What do you believe are the best ways for a district to monitor student achievement?
I'm going to address this in a couple of different ways. I'm going to tell you one thing that I don't think monitors student achievement. I will tell you that our MAST test is, in my opinion, a failure. It doesn't measure what it needs to measure. It does not provide data that's accurate. With that said, what teachers see in the classroom is probably the best data. How do we make sure that everybody can see that? That makes it a little bit more difficult. Second best is looking at an assessment that tests students' knowledge and growth, so proficiency and growth. Quite honestly, my favorite assessment tool is the NWEA MAPS test. I don't know if we've looked at that, if we use it. The reason I like it is not tied to any curriculum. It's an independent assessment. So the language of the assessment does not alter the outcomes. In Malta, we use the iReady. It was effective. It provided information for growth and proficiency, but the drawback was that it was language-based in that curriculum. So if that curriculum was not how the teachers taught the specific subject that it was testing, or the specific concepts that it was looking at, there would be failures of understanding from the students, and it had a huge impact on the test scores. Perfect example, when I first started, I had 3 second grade classes. 2 of my second grade teachers were teaching the math, not using iReady. They were teaching all the same concepts, but the iReady language was not daily in what they were doing. The third teacher the results. And there was a huge discrepancy between the students that came out of those two classes and the one that taught it. It also then hindered the next grade level because those students were then not familiar with that language. And so when they were then looking at the assessments, it had an impact. So I think that when we look at how a student is doing, we need to make sure that our tool is not skewing that data. It still provides us data, but is it accurate? I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna say let's find a tool that works. Are we gonna get rid of math? No. Are we gonna have to deal with it? Yes. So we'll still continue working on it. We're gonna tweak here how to provide our students the best success with it, so that it does measure as accurately as possible. But I think that we need to find another much better tool to base our decisions in the district on than that specific test.
Awesome. How can a superintendent help support the delivery of instruction to students?
Making sure that our teachers have what they need to do that delivery. Looking at what are they using? And don't micromanage. It's important that, again, I have experts in those classrooms. They know what they're doing. They know how to deliver that. Give them the freedom to do so. Am I gonna push them in thinking of different ways to deliver to be more successful? Absolutely. Am I going to instruct my principals to look at that and give them those tools? Absolutely. That's how we grow. But on the other side of that, they can't grow if I'm in that classroom saying, no, you need to do it this way. No, this is how you need to do it. You're doing it wrong. No? Here's another way that you can look at it. Take in, work, see what you can do with it.
All right, philosophical. Some employees and community members are very resistant to change, while others see change in a positive way. How do you view change in the context of educational programs?
Change is necessary. Change for change alone is not. I live by the old adage, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. If we're looking at a specific curriculum and we see a deficit in something, then we need to figure out how to eliminate that deficit. If we're looking at a specific offering that we have not provided, but we have the need to provide it, then we need to figure out a way to get it there. If we have, it literally comes down to how do you make sure that the teachers have what they need to do to teach. And that doesn't always mean they're standing at the front of the room and lecturing. There is something that I really love, and I've labeled it educational chaos. Students are given the time to explore, and when you walk past their classroom, it will look like it's completely out of control. It's not. It means that those students are totally engaged and are learning and are seeing those aha moments. And they're having fun, and they're sharing with each other. And when they run up to you and say, Mr. Robinson, see what I just learned here? And they're willing to share that, that's your success. That's when you got it taken care of.
Do you have a vision of public education? Would this vision work for this district?
I have a vision. you that that vision has come through the degree programs that I've worked with. And it's out there, and I don't expect it to happen overnight. One of the reasons that I took the role at OSG was that was part of where they were going. My true belief is that in our history of education, we have moved from allowing students to have autonomy in their education, and that philosophy that was in the Liberal schoolhouse in the 1860s, and then businesses and universities and state departments of education came together and went, we need to find a better, efficient way to do this. We also need to train our workers to be able to handle those repetitive, monotonous jobs and be able to do them for 20 or 30 years without complaint. So we developed an educational system that did just that. It taught to the center. It didn't allow for deviation. It was a sage on stage lecture with the Carnegie units, A, B, C, D, F, grading system, super efficient, and it did exactly what it needed to do. It created a population that could go into the factories and do that same repetitive job every single day for 30 years and feel fulfilled. It killed creativity. That was what it needed to do. In today's job market, we need workers with creativity. We need workers that can think outside the box because we've learned how to mechanize all that repetitive work. We don't need the factory workers doing that same repetitive thing day after day after day. We now need those people, when that machine fails, to understand why it failed and how to fix it. Even though they may not know why it failed and how to fix it. They need to have the skills to be able to do that. And that starts with providing our students autonomy. There is a term called andragogy. We talk in education about pedagogy. Pedagogy, by definition, is teacher-directed learning. Andragogy is learner-directed learning. It takes work, it takes time, it takes understanding, because I will tell you, there isn't a teacher coming out of a university yet who's been taught about this and how to execute. So it requires a whole different paradigm shift, a shift of thought. I will tell you from the experience of working with the teachers in the last 2 schools that I've worked in, our teachers are, if they're not there already, they're really close. It's going to take just a little push. I have that experience to be able to take them in that direction. That is that self-directed learning environment. Additionally, if I could create a utopian environment in education, I'd eliminate grade levels, and I'd eliminate the grading system, move to a standards-based grading, and allow students to move at their pace as they learn. One of the things that I learned as a band director, when I was doing my student teaching, I had a great cooperative teacher who designed his classroom and his bands where each student moved at their own pace. He gave them instruction, they would go through the method books and learn all of the exercises. But each student had the autonomy to complete those exercises at their own pace. By doing so, he grew a band from 60 members to 400 in 7 years. He got to the point where when I was there, and it was about 450 when I was there, that he was driving the schedule because he had so many kids in his groups. I watched, at that time, I know that there are at least 10 students out of the group that I worked with who are now professional musicians, one of which went to Juilliard and is now the percussionist at New York Philharmonic. yes, he definitely was part of that student's life. But the reason it was successful is he never put a ceiling on any kid. Our educational system puts ceilings, and our kids meet them or don't meet them. But if we take those ceilings away, they're gonna go way beyond what we ever thought they could do. Does that mean that we have some work to do with our teachers? Yes. And one is giving them the confidence that they don't have to be owners in their students' study. It's actually the students that can take that ownership. Now, do I know if this district's ready for that? No. Am I gonna work in that direction? Yeah. But like I said earlier, I don't expect this to happen overnight. I don't expect even in a year that that will happen. Am I gonna plant seeds? Yeah, I'm gonna plant seeds. And I'm gonna stretch, I'm gonna push. But our staff and our students will move as they're able to, as they're comfortable to. And over time, we can make adjustments.
This is back to leadership and management, which we kind of skipped around.
Okay.
You are hired as a new superintendent in a district. You find several staff who have been less than supportive of your appointment and who are only mildly responsive to you personally. What is your response?
Let's have a conversation. Let's figure out how we can work together. Let's figure out how we can move past this. And I will tell you right now, I can feel it, and it's okay. Everybody is going to move through the situation in their direction. I don't take it personally. Unless I personally done something that warrants it, we're gonna work through it. I'm going to work to figure out how can we build a relationship where we become successful. But it's also not gonna happen overnight. It may not happen in a year. It may not happen in 5 years. It's okay. We're gonna continue working on it.
Then, the other question is, do you believe a district of this size can be effectively led without an assistant superintendent? Why or why not, and what factors would influence your assessment?
So, one of the things that I did prior to coming here was looking through, especially when the notification came out that we were looking at an interim, wanted to figure out why. And so I went back to our school board meetings and I saw the communications there. I think it's possible. Do I think it may be the best for the school district? Maybe not. We're right on the edge in the population where an assistant can make things easier. They can take on roles that would allow me as a superintendent to focus on different things. Is it an impossible task to take it on by myself? I'm not sure. I would say I could probably do it. Is there gonna be some missteps and a chance of more missteps without the extra help? Probably. But it doesn't mean it's not possible. Now, with that said, would I recommend that we have an assistant, especially if we've had one in the past? I would say again, if it's not broke, don't fix it. If it's to reduce our budgetary constraints, is that really going to help reduce it? Or is it going to create other issues by eliminating that position? And is the money saved actually going to be enough? Because again, if I as a superintendent am making more mistakes and more missteps because I am overloaded with what I need to do, that's not gonna help the district in any way, shape, or form. So, I guess ultimately, I would recommend that if we've got one in place, and it sounds like that we have, that should remain. And that's a really good reason not to.
Any other follow-up questions? Okay. Just based on time and for the other candidates, so before we conclude, thank you for all of your answers. Before we conclude, one final question. If selected, when would you be available to begin serving as interim superintendent? And are there any commitments or obligations that would affect your start date or availability? And then additionally, are there any compensation expectations or term requirements you would like the board to consider?
So thank you very much for those questions. As of Monday, I am moving. If offered this position, I will be down here on Saturday looking at houses and working on starting that process. Week from Monday, I will be out of Malta to wherever I am. If that's here, then that's where I'll be. Here, as in Billings. So I'll be looking at places to live in. I would assume, barring anything unforeseen, that at least by August 1st, if not prior to, I should be able to start my role as a superintendent. The posted 130 to 140 is very well within, and I will say, because of my experience level, that, and to help the district out, that the lower end, I would be very willing to accept. I don't want that to be a factor in giving me the no. But I understand that budget constraints are budget constraints. Any place that we can make changes, let's do that. But ultimately, I feel that I'm already going to be behind the 8 ball taking this role, simply because July 1st really should have been when I was starting, to make sure that the transition was what it needed to be. And there's no way for any of us to correct that now. But the longer that I postpone me coming in, those factors are only going to be worse. And so the quicker that I can transition in here, the better success we will see. And so I will work on my side to make it as quick as possible. And we will be in communication if that is your decision, that I am the one that takes this position, to continue to work on. Now, does that mean between the 20th and August 1st that I'm not going to be seen around here? No, I'm going to be in here, but to be able to full-time put everything into this, I think August 1st is a real realistic expectation.
Thank you. We appreciate your interest in serving the district and sharing your experience, qualifications, and perspectives with us this evening. The board will go ahead and continue the interview process with the remaining candidates before discussing the candidates and considering possible action later this evening. Thank you again for your time and willingness to serve the Lockwood School District.
Okay. Thank you. May I ask one question, give one statement?
Yes.
Before I move on. Did all of you receive the explanation, multiple explanation? Were you able to review that? Are there any questions, since I know that that's also public knowledge? Are there any questions or concerns that you would like to address? Thank you for your time. I'm looking forward to whatever decision is made by the school.
Awesome.
Hopefully, I'm looking forward to meeting you.
Thank you very much for your time. Thank you. Our next candidate will start shortly, but we're gonna just take a quick break to let people use the restroom.